Hello, folks. I'm Darren Rogan, and welcome to my talk. I'm going to start now. Hey. So my talk today is the future of ownership in an AI economy. But first, who am I, and why should you actually listen to me? So I run an advisory firm in Web 2 and Web 3. I've been doing entrepreneurship for over 15 years, starting companies. I was entrepreneur in residence at UQ, commercializing lots of different stuff. I've launched insurance companies, run data teams, AI teams, and I also have been doing crypto full-time for the past 5 years. I'm heavily involved in ecosystems, Web3 strategy, and there's my QR code if anyone wants to connect with me afterwards. I'm also head of ecosystems for Vanachain, which you'll hear about very soon, with investors from Polychain, Paradigm, and Coinbase Ventures. And this is a sector that we focus on, so I know my shit in this subject matter, okay, folks? So let's get into it. As Andrew Yang says, AI is the new electricity. And what that really means is that AI is going to become in everything. Think about the takeover of electricity that went into every industry and impacted everything we do. Like everything that you do, your whole life sits on your phone. Most cars are becoming electricity. And AI tools will be ubiquitous in absolutely everything you do. But we have a massive explosion of growth, okay? The AI market is going bananas at the minute. Now, who here has used ChatGPT or an AI model? Yeah? Have anyone used Claude or any other models? All right. So I think you all know how much work can be saved by these AI models. But these AI models are processing an enormous amount of data, huge data sets, and they have exponentially more requirements and more data. As we're feeding more and more data into these systems, they're becoming better and better and better. So it's like insatiable. Not only do we need to keep the growth of AI, we need lots more power for lots more machines, and we need lots more data. But we do have a bit of a bottleneck, okay? How do we get this data? Where do we get it from? And what do we do about corporates? Because look at the big AI companies. They're the big data companies. Okay? They're the ones who own your life online, and they're the ones releasing the models. Ownership in an AI economy starts to come down to the data, okay? Meta, in all of their good and positive things and negative things that they do, have released an open source model called Llama 3. And in doing so, it really allows other people to build on top of this model. So that's like getting OpenAI and getting a copy of that and giving it out for free. Now, they do that for their own corporate benefit, and it's called a broad oak strategy, where they don't want to have any competitors in their space. So they're trying to do value destruction in the primary model, which is great for the rest of us, because that value does not disappear. It just gets pushed to other bits of the market, okay? And that gets pushed down into the inference, and that also gets pushed into the data, okay? But we have a choice when we start to think about data and AI. And it's a choice that I think is a very important choice. And I think a lot of people in this room, if you're in this room, probably agree with me. Do we have data exploitation from large corporates, or do we have data ownership? Okay? If you think about who owns the data, it is your data, okay? You supplied it. Look at the rise of all the big Web 2 companies. They are companies that centralize the value of other people's assets, right? Airbnb, the largest hotelier, doesn't have any hotels. Uber, the largest taxi firm, doesn't have any cars. They are centralizing and extracting the value. They still deliver value, do not get me wrong, but the majority of value gets siphoned into the centralized company, and the individuals continue to get a worse and worse deal. Speak to any Uber driver and they'll tell you it used to be much better when there was competition, and over time it gets worse and worse as that value extraction moves to the center. Web 2 are basically data extractors, okay? You are a data stream. There is a massive industry of data brokering, and people buy and sell information about you all the time. If you want to join an exchange in Australia, they have to use something like chain analytics companies, chain analysis, to look at you and look at your wallet and understand risk profiles. And you are in a bank, just a number. You just go in the Commonwealth Bank and the computer decides, not the bank manager. You are just a data stream. But the data stream is owned by those large corporates. And they sit on these big data sets, and they don't want anyone else to have them. And that creates an innovation blockade because they're monopolies. And those monopolies are interested in value extraction, not changing the way it works. If I'm top of the pile and I'm making shit tons of money, why do I want to change the system? Why do I want to make it fairer? And why do I want to put money in your hands? I don't. I want to put it in my hands, okay? So these systems get set up in a way that exacerbates this extraction model. And like, I did a social network in Boston. I sold data to Nike and Under Armour. So you were using our sports network. And how we really monetized was Nike and Under Armour were getting all the information, and they were using that for additional marketing. So I understand Web 2 data extraction. The user generation part, that's everyone in this room. The data capture part is all the metrics you put on every product that you use. Your phone is just a data treasure trove. You're constantly generating data wherever you walk, the amount of times you plug into any app, all the scrolling you do, what you like, what you tweet. But it's all captured by the big corporates, right? So Facebook's not going to give me the Facebook data, your data. Twitter is not going to give me the Twitter data without trying to pay a large amount of money to them. But that is not their data. They collected it. We do have rules. We got a Californian data rule. We got GDPR in Europe. There's an Indian data rule that states that you own the data. The corporates only have a license to it, okay? And it's important to realize this for the future as data becomes more and more important. The Web 2 model, you are basically a cow, and you come onto my land, and I'm going to milk you and sell your milk, right? You don't get any milk. You don't get any money from that milk. But we can change how that works. And I think it's important just to be like, Web 2 is very powerful. But Web 3 has the ability with cryptocurrencies and tokens and allocations that you can actually be rewarded. In Web 2, it was too expensive to reward individual users and too much work. But with the ability of using like token generations in data DAOs, which we'll talk about in a sec, I can sort of reward you for the data sets that you put in, and we can create group ownerships around those. The fact that it's then your data means that you can unlock stuff that wasn't otherwise unlockable. But I believe in decentralizing all the things, okay? I'm a big believer in decentralization because I think monopolies are generally bad for people. I think the monopolies in the banking system is bad for people. I think there's monopolies everywhere are terrible. I think the monopolies on AI is the scariest thing, as the AI gives us all the information as we move forward, as Google and all these sort of arbiters of data. If that's a centralized model, how do I know what's truthful anymore? How do I know what I can believe when a government agency creates a misinformation bill and just decides they don't want to tell us about stuff? It is in the Senate. Please call your senator. Don't let it happen. But after that, the point is, how do we enable decentralized AI? Decentralized AI still needs the data, okay? So there's a bunch of projects doing decentralized AI. I can't compete as an individual with Microsoft or Meta or Tesla now, who have bought hundreds and hundreds of GPUs, right? So NVIDIA's stock is through the roof, and that's because all these big corporates are in an AI race. They're buying up all the hardware, securing all the data, and they are trying to sort of create these AI monopolies. And to be honest, I don't believe a Web 2 startup innovation, which is my background as well, has the opportunity because of the economics of getting access to the compute and then the economics of getting access to the data. But we do have plenty of projects launching Gaia, Lilypad, that are all doing decentralized access to graphics cards. So you can connect up and you can rent out your graphics card when you're not playing games, okay? When you actually have to go to work and you're not sitting at home playing a computer game, then you can actually make some money by connecting your graphics card to one of these networks and allowing a startup or another person to use your assets. So we're coming back to this group asset model that can then be used for other people. A bit like NiceHash. If anyone remembers NiceHash, we used to like give it over to miners, but you're actually giving it over to AI models. We also have DePIN, which is decentralized infrastructure. This is us coming together to put stuff in. Like Helios and a bunch of others are doing like meshed gateways. We got people doing sensors. We got people doing all of these centralized things. You basically buy a box, you plug the box in. I don't know if anyone saw me yesterday at the Dogecoin talk. They got Dogebox, and they're trying to create another network. You buy a little machine and you plug it in, and we have proper decentralized infrastructure to deliver real business value. And in doing that, you not only break monopolies, but you actually have data streams, okay? So Helium is now processing, I think, 10% of the of some of the backbone of network processing because it's across all these networks, which is sort of a ISP in the US. It's actually across the world, but the deal I'm talking about is in the US. And networks are now pushing some of their load when they're overloaded to Helium. And Helium is then load balancing that across multiple networks, all through individual people's accounts, because you've got like unlimited broadband, for example. And then you're getting paid for the broadband that you're not using. And Helium is selling that to other broadband providers, and everyone's getting a better service, and we're basically load balancing across the network rather than, let's say, Telstra's blocked and there's not traffic on Optus. And this is sort of this decentralized infrastructure. But what it also does is it gives us additional data sources in collecting that may be beneficial for other parties. In the Web 2 model, a company would just sit on that data and they would let no one else have it. But in the Web 3 model, we can actually monetize that data and we can create a lot of innovation. So Hive Mapper, for example, is another like Google Maps where you get to drive around and you get rewarded for going down the streets you've never been before. But the point that I would make is more that you can connect into these, use them, but you can also be actually doing data streams. And this is like passive income at the end of the day, because you are generating that data anyway, so why don't you get a piece of it? The unlocking of these data is important, okay? Like, I know researchers who want to do research, but they can't get the data, and they contact a big company, and the company says, no, right? We don't want anyone to see anything. We're just going to keep everything private, and we'll tell people what's inside. In the Web 2 land, you have to get someone else to do a report. In the Web 3 land, it's more open. So I believe that we've got an innovation opportunity using decentralized data, decentralized cryptocurrency networks, and decentralized compute. And the startup opportunities of building real products that are AI enabled means we can do things that are cheaper and better and can scale much further. And we don't have this chicken and egg problem because we can onboard people and everyone gets rewarded. So you get this compounding effect. We do have what might be called the decentralized AI economy. Now, this is an important thing if we are actually going to compete against the centralized AI companies. Now, I use their products. Their products are great. I'm not going to stop using them. But I don't want them to be the only companies. I don't want them to be the only arbiter of truth or value. And if you think about it, you could be part of this economy. Instead of a consumer, you can be a producer. You can be a data stream contributor. And I start to think about how that value starts to move through the network and out to the edge, okay? Rather than it coming from the edge into the center, it means that people inside the network are rewarded for being a part of the network, rather than, as I described before, you just being cattle, and while you're in here, I'm sneakily sucking all your milk and selling your milk without you knowing, okay? That value flow, you get to be a piece of it. But with data DAOs in particular, that's like the group ownership, which we do at Vana, that allows you to decide what you want to do with your data. So rather than a corporation selling your data, let's say to a gambling company, which you don't want that to happen, you have no say in the matter. But in a data DAO, those decisions are made as a collective. and you can have as many structures as you want, really, but it does mean you start to take over what you want to do with your own data. Like, I see a point in the future where your data stream may end up being UBI, right? What happens when the AI is replacing most of our jobs? I was a programmer. AI is a better programmer than I am, really. And most document writers are being done by Claude. Robotics are coming. A mate of mine does fruit-picking robots. They're all coming. So we have an inflection of robotics and AI that will impact employment opportunities over the next 10 to 20 years. And every job that you know will probably change. We're in a macro point of inflection of technology, and it's just going to keep extending and going faster. So what do we do? What does the masses do? Maybe I should get paid for the 3 hours I wasted on TikTok the other day, right? Maybe when you're doing things that is part of your data stream. And if this continually goes into these models, which is then building value into these models, then I think that might happen. Because UBI is being practiced, but what is it that you could do that actually generates value, and how do you get involved? The user-owned economy is the opportunity, right? Will it be successful? I don't know, okay? I'm not going to sit here and tell you that it will definitively take out Web 2, but I believe in real competition. And if you do not have real competition, you have anti-competitive behavior. So the Reddit data DAO exists in Vanna, which was the people pulling out their Reddit data. We got like 40,000 users' data. And that had a commercial deal, I can't disclose the number, last week. And we got them sold, and everyone is getting money paid into the DAO, and they're going to do that distribution. But we get that data to researchers to the point that Reddit went and changed its terms and conditions because it wanted to stop our growth for that data DAO, so that they will now give researchers access for free because the data DAO was doing that, and they were now stepping away from the company and going to the data DAO. So not only does it potentially, add value, but it actually creates systemic changes in these corporates because we force them to be better. So even if it doesn't work, and even if this all went away, I'd be happy to make Web 2 a better place. But what I would say to you is, have a look. Vanna will be releasing pretty soon. I think there's other projects will be out next year or the year after, because this ability for you to monetize your data sets, this ability to supply information to decentralized AI, I think is an important opportunity that is not available to the rest of us, because AI companies are extremely money hungry, which means that the average retail person cannot get involved. So how do we get involved? One, we export our data, see what information you do have. Two, you can join a decentralized infrastructure network, plug a box in. You've got a lot of ones doing sensors for a whole bunch of stuff. There's a bunch on Solana, there's a bunch on Base. Just look and see what interests you and what value you think you can do. And you get paid in tokens for allocating them, so you get rewarded rather than just the usage. Stack some data streams. There are a lot of people who were in the Vanna pre-mining have joined multiple data DAOs, and they're exporting multiple data. So rather than thinking I'm going to get rich on one of these, think of them like dripping taps. That you're going to have several dripping taps that after enough of these start to build into larger and larger capital pools. And this is something that will just continue to grow and grow as everyone generates more and more data. And the hungriness of these models is never going away. And the liveliness of the data is also super important. Participate in some AI initiatives, join them, play with them. ChatGPT is great, don't get me wrong, but there's a big wide world of models out there. There's a big wide world of startups doing interesting stuff. These big models like ChatGPT and so forth, they're what we call a generalistic model, which means they're really good at general tasks. But what's going to get super interesting is the specialistic models. So we take something like Llama 3, and we do what's called fine-tuning. And what that really means is I take a model, and I say, with this specialistic data set, I want you to just focus down on this one subject, okay? So I did a hackathon in Bangkok last week, and one person wanted to do a Reddit shitbot posting bot, which I thought was quite funny. So they took a generalistic model, and they said, I want you to be a degenerate Twitter person. So they got degenerate Twitter posts, and they said, this is how I want you to behave. And then it then actually starts to behave in the way that they want, rather than a generalistic model response. Because if you're sending me text from ChatGPT, I can spot it a mile off. So the value of having these generic programs will start to decrease, as it's now seen as potentially a negative, because I don't respect your time, I'm just using these generalized models. That's where the specialistic models come in, especially for special skills as well. And then you get to control your data, and then I'm hopeful that will spawn a lot of innovation as these data sets become available to new entrepreneurs. The walled gardens that exist get broken down by people taking back their data and making it available for other stuff. Now, that's wildly speculative, but I've been in innovation for 15 years, and we have cycles of stuff change over time. And you see these come through, like mobile, and then you see AI is the next cycle. And how do we compete with the large companies? We compete through these sorts of services. So that's my talk. I've got questions. Everyone's got any questions? You want to put your hand up? Okay, well, so you got a question? No? That's not a problem. So like ecosystems, so I do ecosystems for Vanna as well. So we have data DAOs launching. We have ones on women's health. We have ones on like your normal Web 2. We've got ones on your browsing habits, so you can just install a plugin. Yeah. Good questions. The question was, what can you do right now to monetize your data or protect your data? So to be clear, your data is all stored securely and encrypted and only processed in secure compute, which means your data is not floating around. Your data and you are already monetized through the data broker network, which people buy and sell your information all the time. You just know nothing about it because it's a dirty secret. So you can't really stop that. There are some scrubbing sites you can go to, and you can go data broker scrubbing and pay some money, and they'll try to remove you of some of the lists. But to actually monetize it, this is like joining these data DAOs. So in a couple of weeks, you'll start to see a bit more about some of the ones that we have. But you can join one of those. So we have got the Clio network, which is, for example, a plugin that you install on your Chrome browser. And it looks at the websites you're going to, and it now tries to create an analytics view of people's viewing habits, how long you spend on stuff. And then that becomes a data set, the same as like Google Analytics. And then they sell that, and you get paid in these Clio tokens. And then those Clio tokens you get paid for by your interactions on the site. You've got Twitter export called Valara. We can go in and you can collect and export all your tweets, and you'll be rewarded with these tokens. Those tokens are then listed like any other crypto token. So instead of buying a token, you can earn a token. And you earn the token with your data. And that is coming very, very soon, but I cannot disclose the exact release date. But I would tell you to have a look at the websites, follow the Twitter, and you start to see there are probably a data DAO that you're interested in. And I've got a program of 12 coming out very shortly. And the next program's got over 300 applicants for the next data DAO. So this is starting to grow. And I just want you to realize that rather than just degening into meme coins, which I still do and enjoy, don't get me wrong, think about what you can do to generate your own tokens with your own sort of data. You can generate your own data DAO, just to be clear. Anyone can start one. And you can also apply for those sorts of accelerator programs. All right, so that's it for me, folks. I hope you have a good day. I hope you enjoy the conference. I hope you go play with some more AI tools, try a data DAO, and I might see you on the after party boat. So thank you very much.